David DeGuzman inside the NBC4 Digital Center, latest edition of NBC4 Sports Extra. We are inside 2 weeks until the season opener between Texas and Ohio State, a top 3 matchup. And now we have some answers as to who will be starting for Ohio State on August 30th. Here to help me out, we bring in sports director Joe Nugent. It was the biggest question, and yet it wasn't the biggest surprise. Obviously, we kind of knew it going in, but we got it official on Monday of this week. It's going to be Julian Sayin starting quarterback over Lincoln Kienholz. But the indication from what Ryan was saying, and maybe it is just because he is the head coach, is that it kind of wasn't that clear cut per se. I mean, because Lincoln did some great things. It wasn't that obvious, but in this last week, it appears that Julian had separated himself from the rest because of his consistency. And is that kind of the take you get from what Ryan said, Joe?
Yeah, 100%. I think, a lot of times folks watch quarterbacks on TV and they see big arms and guys who can throw the ball a mile and that sort of thing. And I think what Ryan Day is looking for is somebody who can actually run Ohio State's offense. He talks about making the routine plays routinely. Those are the things that are going to win you the quarterback job at Ohio State. Having command of the huddle, being a leader for the football team, and being able to do everything that the coaches ask you to do. Now, certainly, week 1, game 1 against Texas, that is the starting point. From there, they will certainly expand and grow as the season goes on. But, it's going to be fun to watch Julian in this first game. And the fact that it went this long, to your point about Lincoln Kienholz, I think it's great for Ohio State that Lincoln was able to push Julian as much as he did and make this, this competition go into mid to deep August. I think it shows great things. And, as we know, quarterbacks get hurt. It happens. And, wouldn't be a surprise if we see Lincoln play. And
especially when you're considering, this long of a season now, you want a season that's going to go well into January now. We're probably going to see Lincoln at some point, take the field for some sort of a significant amount of time. Now, what significant means might vary depending on who you ask. But what struck me also from that press conference was, how much Ryan kept talking about that Lincoln did all these things too. It sounded like Julian just did all these things just a little bit better. Let's take a pause and hear from Ryan Day just on how close Lincoln got and why we should still expect him to take the field this fall.
He knows in his heart he's going to play this year. And so he's going to prepare to play in the first game. And we know it's a long season. So, I'm sure, he's a competitor. I'm sure he wants to play in the first game, but I wouldn't say he's discouraged. I thought he had a good practice out here today. He had good energy. The team knows that we're going to need him, and he knows. Again, I thought that was, excellent leadership on his end. And
so, it was a 2-horse race until pretty much the very end. And, what's interesting, though, is also the timing of the decision. This was made 12 days before the season opener. And, it could have been interesting. Ryan didn't necessarily have to tell everyone. He could have, just had the, decision in his mind and maybe have just told, the players and then kind of put an embargo. I know that's not how he operates, but that could have been something that they could have done.
There's a lot of coaches in that situation who would have done exactly that. They would have not announced a starting quarterback, and they would have basically let Texas find out on the first play of the game who Ohio State's starting quarterback is. And, that kind of makes sense, too, from the perspective of the fact that these two guys are a little bit different, right? Lincoln is a little bit more mobile. Julian can certainly run and pick up first downs, by the way. I think that part of his game isn't necessarily being acknowledged throughout this offseason. He can move and he can pick up first downs, but Lincoln a little bit better on the ground.
Yeah.
If Texas had to prepare for both of them, I think it would have been a little bit of a challenge for them because they're not the same quarterback.
I think part of it was also just because Ohio State, and how us, the media, covers Ohio State, it probably would have been a really hard secret to kind of keep. But to Ryan's credit, he explained it as, we got to get the reps in as for Julian as the number one. He's going to get the reps with, the first team. Now, he also said Lincoln's going to get some reps with that first team as well, just so that he can be prepared. But, when you're talking about a 2-week runway up until, probably one of the most significant season openers that we have seen in quite some time here at Ohio State, it was probably important to get that decision done up to this point. So now it's 2 weeks to go. And I don't know, what do you think? Julian's going to be ready?
I think he will be ready. I think they have a good idea of what he does really well right now. I think they're going to stick to that. I think that's kind of the idea really in this first game against Texas for everybody, is to not make things too complicated, to put these guys in positions to succeed. A lot of players in different spots like Julian. I think the idea is to keep it somewhat simple and let their talents make an impact on the game. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see what they asked Julian to do. Now, we talked to the corners and safeties this week as well, and Julian was a big point of that conversation since they've been facing him the last several weeks in camp, and they say that he's made all the throws and he's done a great job with all those throws. So I think it's going to be fun to see how much Ohio State pushes the ball downfield. Ryan did say this week that they're going to let it rip. That's what he likes to say.
Just do enough to win. Just go out and win.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the other thing is you have to understand that, Texas can hear everything that he says at every press conference.
That's
so,
right.
You don't know how much of that is, designed to kind of throw your opponent off a little bit. But I think that's what I'm most interested to see is how aggressive is this offense going to be, and how much are they going to try to push it, because they have so many great receivers. The offensive line is also, really strong. I feel confident that they're going to be able to run the ball and do a pretty good job at that. So, how does it look? It's really going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just setting up for this epic clash and what's so different as opposed to, when this is like a championship game or a playoff game, you don't know what's going to happen. I think that adds to the intrigue. Something that we do know, though, going into this season, this has been a busy news week in terms of Ohio State football. We got to know who the captains are and who was the Block O recipient. So your captains this year, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Austin Sierravelt, and Brandon Inniss. And in addition, Sonny Styles wearing the Block O jersey, all well-deserving. But really, for me, the name that sticks out there and it probably says a lot about what he's done in this offseason, Brandon Inniss. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that name?
Yeah. Not too many captains of college football teams who haven't started a game for the team that they are on. Now, that'll change, obviously, early in the season here once it all begins. And Brandis, we all expect, will start. But it shows you his ability to create relationships and hold people accountable within this team, his natural ability to do that without being a starter. I mean, it's so interesting. You don't normally have that with a backup wide receiver. But, Ryan even explained this week that, there was a moment, during camp where, it just wasn't a good day. Things weren't going well. And he was the guy who was like, all right, let's stop. Let's talk about this. Let's get this straight. Let's stop wasting our, that sort of thing. Like, let's get back on track and do what we want to do. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And clearly he's a guy who's comfortable with that type of stuff. I mean, you think about the touchdown he scored against Penn State last year and the huge third down catch in the national championship game. Also in that national championship game, he's the first one running down the field on the 3rd and 11 catch by, Jeremiah. When Carnell caught that touchdown against Northwestern, Ryan did talk about that as well. He's the first one to get to Carnell. I mean, this guy loves his teammates, loves this team, finds ways to make an impact without being a starter. And of course, this year he will be.
And never really was seeking the credit. He was just doing enough for his team and what he wanted to do. But it does put that level of expectation on him going into the year. So interested to see how he kind of levels up this season. Before we go, we also got to hear from the DBs this week. Of course, that also includes Caleb Downs. He's done a thing or two for this team. He's one of those players you always want to keep an eye on. He talked about versatility and also talked about kind of being that nickel position. Overall, Joe, with the DBs, how is that going to be a strength for Ohio State, a much needed one this season?
Yeah, I think when you look at Ohio State's defense, they're replacing 4 starters on the defensive line, so they really need that back half to be rock solid. Teams certainly are going to try to run the ball early. I assume Texas is going to try to find out exactly what Ohio State has up front. I think they'll probably run early and, figure it out. They might not be happy with what they find out, but I think Ohio State's secondary has to be strong so they have something to lean on. I think really when you look at the team as a whole, I think the defense needs to be strong this year, kind of like 2 years ago, where the defense was ahead of the offense and did a great job. I think with a little bit more turnover in terms of key spots on the offensive side of the ball, quarterback, running back. I think they're really going to need the defense to perform this year in a big way, a lot like last year, but more specifically the year before. So, I just think the secondary is going to be the rock of this team. When you have Caleb Downs coming back, you have IGB coming back, Jermaine Matthews is probably stepping into a bigger role. He played in every game last year, all 16 games. Played, I think, half the game against Texas in the Cotton Bowl. So he's played significant amount of time in huge games. And he'll be making his first start more than likely coming up here. Yeah. But he's not a guy who hasn't played significant minutes. Yeah. I think that's one thing. We talk about all the starters that they lost on defense and who these guys are that are replacing them. It's not like people are replacing them who haven't been on the field.
Right, exactly. There's so much depth, and to their credit, there's always going to be a wealth of talent for Ohio State to kind of pull from. One other note from the DBs, it's kind of funny. I didn't realize this until when we were talking to Caleb, is that this will be the third time for Caleb to face a Texas team because, he transferred from Alabama. So there's a little bit of familiarity with the Longhorns. Before we go, again, less than 2 weeks for camp. Next week is basically game week, obviously, so camp is basically over. But I feel like there's still some questions. We talked about depth. There's still some questions a little bit on the depth chart, and we got a little bit of a piece of the offensive line. We know that Austin Sareveld will definitely be at left tackle. There's still 4 other spots that we got to figure out. It's not like it's going to be a surprise, but Ryan Day already has in his mind who he wants. We just don't know it yet. Anything that's still unanswered going into these final days of camp for you?
Yeah, I don't think that there will be any clarity in the secondary related to who's going to start next to Caleb Downs in the back end. Whether it's Malik Hartford or Jalen McClain, who's going to be the nickel, we don't know. Tim Walton wasn't ready to commit to anybody starting at corner, which, we all figure IGB, who, considered going pro, is certainly going to hold down one side. But, Devin Sanchez has certainly looked great in camp. IGB's talked about him, how this guy just doesn't look like a normal freshman, just the way he moves. He has poise. He's ready for the big moment, even though he's never been in a big moment at the college level. Somebody who has a very similar mental makeup to Jeremiah Smith in that way.
Yeah,
so
that's saying a lot.
It is. Somebody who's a true freshman who's ready to come in and make an impact and help this team that is a top 5 team in the country. I mean, that's pretty wild. So, yeah, when they take the field for the first time on defense, the questions are going to be who's starting on the defensive line and who's starting in that secondary. And I just, the feeling that I get is that the coaches don't really want to talk about that, even if they have an idea what they want to do. I think, we were kind of talking about how Ohio State could have done that at quarterback. I think at these other spots, they're just going to let it go to that first game, and we'll all find out together.
We'll all find out together. That game is coming sooner than you think. Yeah. Looking forward to it. And Joe, by this point next week, it's going to be game week, so that's really exciting. Joe Nugent, appreciate the time as always. We will be back. You're watching NBC4 Sports Extra.
Yeah, ton of respect for Julian. We recruited him hard here. He was a very gifted passer, really good player. Came to camp with us, I want to say 2 years in a row. And so we've got a lot of familiarity with him. He's obviously a California kid, his high school coach and whatnot. So a very good player, elite passer, very good arm talent, very quick release, really accurate guy. Obviously, he's got great weapons around him. And so, he's the type of guy that can utilize those weapons in a good system.
Steve Sarkisian, the Texas head coach, commenting on the recent decision by Ohio State to name Julian Sayin as the starting quarterback. And on that note, we want to take a first look at the Texas Longhorns. Here to help me out, we have KXAN sports anchor Roger Wallace from down in Austin. Roger, I really appreciate the time. We just heard from Coach Sarkisian about Julian Sayin, had a lot of nice things to say. So on that note, how does that decision that Ryan Day has made maybe change or kind of tinker the adjustment that the approach that Texas has going into this epic season opener?
Probably confirms what they thought. I'm guessing they thought he would win the job. As Sark says, he's pretty familiar with his background. So this is a pretty good Texas defense, and I'm sure that the respect they have for Ohio State, regardless of who is going to be the quarterback. You heard Sark talk about all the weapons offensively, probably doesn't alter the way they want to play. It's going to be an interesting matchup because you got a Texas defense on Monday, 3 first-team All-Americans named on the AP, and then all the hype around Arch Manning as well. So I think it just kind of confirms what they thought.
Do you think, considering the history, especially the recent history, the last meeting was that pretty memorable Cotton Bowl playoff semifinal. What's the factor of revenge on the Longhorns' mind? I know it's a new season. However, there's obviously that lingering memory in the Longhorns' minds.
Yeah, I think they realize that it's hard to get revenge when Ohio State won that game and went on to win the national title. And I'm sure they were confident had they won that game, they would have won the national title. So I don't think August 30th will change that. But certainly it's an unusual situation to play the team that not only ended your season, but went on to win it all. This is back-to-back years. Texas has gone on the road to play the reigning national champs. Last year they did it week 2 at Michigan, this year in Columbus. I think it's more about just seeing exactly how good this team can be right out of the gates. They don't get that first week home game to kind of get the kinks out like Ohio State. And so I think they're way more concerned about seeing what this team looks like rather than thinking that this will do anything to erase the memory of what happened inside of AT&T Stadium last January.
Give us a sense of the excitement and also especially surrounding a player who just happens to have a last name called Manning and how that, that excitement is kind of translating down in Austin.
It's big, and I think for a couple of reasons, David. First of all, he's a Manning. He was highly regarded, clearly has a big-time skill set, but I think the way he's carried himself the last 2 years has fans excited because there was no sense that he felt like he deserved to be the quarterback. He ever deserved to be it over Quinn Ewers, waited his time, had nothing but great things to say about developing behind Quinn Ewers. It said today, as a matter of fact, that he wasn't ready to play as a freshman. Obviously, last year he had to make 2 starts, made their start in their first ever SEC game, had a big game in Mississippi State, had some rough moments too, including the Georgia game in Austin when he came in for Ewers and struggled a little bit. He's not thrown a pass on the road. All 90 passes have been home, comfortable. So, again, a lot of things that will be interesting to see when he goes inside the horseshoe on the 30th and leading this Texas team.
And got about a minute left here. Give us a sense of how the Texas defense now is preparing for this Ohio State offense that now has a starting quarterback, but also maybe the possibility, and we don't know, of course, but maybe the possibility of also sinking Lincoln a little bit.
Yeah, I think they're excited because of what they have, and it starts with Anthony Hill, their linebacker. They've got a sophomore edge in Colin Simmons as well. They think from the edge they can really disrupt some things. Sark went deep into the portal on the defensive interior, and they like what they have on the back end despite losing the Thorpe Award winner Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba, who's with the Eagles. I think they think they can be very disruptive on defense.
All right. Well, that's what we'll work with going into these final couple days before Texas and Ohio State meet on August 30th. KXAN sports anchor Roger Wallace, I really appreciate the time. Thanks as always. We will be right back here on NBC4 Sports Extra. All right, we're back here continuing on NBC4 Sports Extra. There is a new face to the Columbus Crew. He's a name that you probably want to get to know pretty quickly, though. Wessam Abou Ali. He is from the Egyptian Premier League club Al Ali. That's actually a pretty big name in the world of soccer. And Whitney Harding was one of the first to speak to the newest face of the crew. So I guess the first question I got to ask you, Whitney, first impression, what's this guy like?
I genuinely think this city is going to fall in love with him. He is just enigmatic. He lights up when he talks about the sport. He brings such energy, even in a plain conversation. And he knows what role he is stepping into with this team. He knows that he is being asked to fill a gap that Cucho Hernandez left. And it's not just a gap of scoring goals. It is a gap of energy. And that is something that he is so excited to bring to this team. He's already had a couple of training sessions under his belt. He said it's been fun so far. No idea yet, as we're talking right now, if he's going to be playing in the next match. That would be a lot to ask, maybe. But I mean,
He might still be jet lagged.
when you pay this much for a player, though, I mean, this is kind of what you are asking. But that's up to them, and that's up to Wilfried and all of that. So no word on that as of yet. But Wessam did talk about why he chose to come to Columbus and why he wanted to play for the crew. It was really interesting.
I'm the type of guy I prefer to go to a club where people scout me well, where people have an idea of where they see my role in the team, and maybe not because I played one good game at a World Cup, for example. So it was basically very simple. It was a club with an idea, with ambitions. They play the best football in the MLS, or soccer as you guys say it. So it was very simple. I felt like I had opportunity to come here and help the team.
Already catching himself with the football. Oh, sorry, soccer. But, you know, it's funny because he talks about how simple the decision was for him. But when I think of the crew and when I think of how Wilfried Nazi runs his team, it's really simple. So it sounds like it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And you've got to spend an extended amount of time with him. Great story that he has coming here to Columbus.
It's amazing. And real quick, before I go into that, I want to say that Issa Tall, the general manager for the crew, said they've been working on this since December. That is a long time to be working on a transfer like this. And there was a time when we thought that this was going to happen very quickly. And then we heard like talks had stalled and it wasn't going to happen. And there were a lot of hoops to jump through, and Issa didn't really go into a lot of detail about that because, I mean, of course, when you bring an international player, there's lots of technicalities and things like that. He also was on a contract with Al Ali for a long time, for an extended period of time. So there was a lot of moving parts there. But his story and where he's come from, he was born in Denmark, so he speaks Danish, and he said that current crew player Malte Amundsen, who is also Danish, they've known each other for the longest time and very excited to speak Danish together. He did, when I talked with him in that extended period, though, call out Malte, and he said that, and there's video of this, that when they saw each other for the first time, handshakes, hugs, start talking in Danish, and then Malte immediately went to English. And Wessam was like, really? All you've been talking about is wanting to speak Danish, and now you're already talking English. But he said it was so nice to be able to talk with Malte and things like that. He also talked with me a lot about his Palestinian heritage and his parents, who are both Palestinian. And he didn't grow up there. He grew up in Denmark, like I said. And his dad actually is from Lebanon, but he is Palestinian, and his mom is Palestinian as well. Yeah. And it's just an incredible story of his appreciation for just people, his appreciation for soccer. He actually also, when he was playing in Denmark, had I don't know if it was actually ruled a heart attack, but had a cardiac issue.
My jaw dropped when you mentioned that.
On the field, on the pitch. And he calls it his accident. He kept saying his accident. And I asked him, I was like, were you in a car accident? And he said, no, I had a heart accident. Wow. And then he called me out and said, you can Google that. I'm like, you know what? I could Google that. But yeah, he talked about that and just how it gave him such an appreciation for soccer.
Wow.
And he plays with that love and he plays with that passion for knowing how wonderful it is that this is his job. He's 26 years old, and he's got this wisdom.
Already so mature, you know, and he's going to make a big impression.
I was floored.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to you telling that story in depth. I know you literally, as of this recording, just got back from his press conference. You're actually about to go.
I'm a little bit of a.
You're going to go out again because he has a whole fan introduction thing
Yes.
going on. So I will let you go to that. But Whitney Harding, I appreciate the time. We're looking forward to seeing that story. And yeah, that will wrap up a whirlwind of an NBC4 Sports Extra. That'll do it for now. I'm David DeGuzman. We will catch you next time here on NBC4 Sports Extra.
Thanks for watching. For more NBC4, download the NBC4 streaming app. You'll get free 24/7 local programming streamed straight to your living room. Just search NBC4 Columbus on your Apple TV, Amazon Fire, or Roku.